We're here in the Sun-Times newsroom with Garry McCarthy, the former police superintendent, fired police superintendent, now a candidate for mayor against the guy who fired you. Why?
It's about public service, Fran. As you know, I spent 35 years in public service. That's what really drives me. And honestly, losing that job was a very difficult thing for me. Private industry, I'm doing okay, but it's not what I really want to do. And looking at what's happening in this city over the last couple of years, I just can't stand by and watch.
What's happening?
Crime rates out of control, taxes that we're paying, people fleeing the city, the education system is not doing what it can do. All of this bodes really poorly for the city. And anytime you tell somebody that you're from Chicago, the first thing you hear is, wow, that's really dangerous. So the perceptions of Chicago are reflecting the feelings that are happening here. We used to say, as long as it's not in my backyard, it's okay. Well, now it's in our front yard, everywhere in this city. There's no place in this city that's safe. There's gunshots outside my window.
And yet you say that we don't need to hire 970 police officers over 2 years, as the mayor has.
It's less important how many you have and more important what they're doing. And the strategy today, I'm not sure what it is, but I know that the strategy that we had was working. Every crime was down 40% in overall crime during my tenure. Lowest murder rate since 1965, 2 years running in 2013 and 2014. And the important thing, Fran, that nobody has publicized is that complaints against our officers were down at the same time as police-related shootings were down about 70% during my tenure. So we were making an awful lot of progress that went right out the window as soon as I was terminated. An entire echelon of the department was wiped out as a result of, we're going to be tough on cops. The cops are the problem. That's not the case. In a city that has 4,300 shootings in 2016, the police are not the problem, the criminals are. And we're addressing the wrong things.
You've been critical of the way the mayor reached down and got Eddie Johnson, did away with the process and went ahead and appointed someone who hadn't even applied.
Yeah, and you know, I think the checks and balances are in place for a reason, not to be swept aside at somebody's whim because they want to do something different. You can't have legitimate policing when you don't have legitimate government.
Now, Laquan McDonald will be a major issue. It happened on your watch. Mm-hmm. The cover-up happened on your watch, or at least the people who are accused now of covering up that murder. You have said that
we're accusing the wrong people. The cover-up happened in City Hall. Steve Patton, Rahm Emanuel's attorney, lied to the city council. That's how he got a $5 million payout.
Lied
it's that
how?
simple.
What did he lie about?
He said that the officer acted within the scope of his authority. And then a year and a half later, in an interview with you, he said it was murder. So those two statements do not reconcile.
Who held the video, and did Rahm know about it?
He knew about the video because I told him. I told him 2 days later after I had seen it.
Did he ask to see it?
Not to me. Not to me. He didn't seem to care.
You told him how volatile it was, obviously.
Absolutely.
And what'd you tell him?
I told him it was going to be a problem.
Yeah, and what did he say? Can I see it?
He didn't care.
He didn't care?
He didn't appear to care.
What do you mean? So
he didn't say, come show me the video. He didn't say that. And if you take a look, Fran, it's in the public record because the Tribune FOIA'd 3,000 emails with Laquan McDonald in it, and I was on exactly one. That entire issue happened in City Hall.
So did Rahm know about the cover-up of the video? Did he ask his attorney to handle it?
I can't answer that. You have to ask
But
Steve Patton.
It defies logic that he wouldn't.
It does defy logic. And I could tell you that knowing the man, he knew everything about what I was doing. I presume he knew everything about what Steve Patton was doing.
He's a control freak, isn't he? Wasn't he on your case all the time?
Absolutely.
Steve Patton said this was a murder to him. You say...
Yeah, but Steve Patton is also on record as lying, so let's get that out of the way.
Okay, so forget him.
It's possible it's murder, absolutely, but that's why we have a criminal justice system, and I believe in the system. If it's a murder, I will support the fact that it's a murder. If it's not, then I'll support the fact that it's not.
But when you look at that video, you don't see Laquan McDonald walking away. You see him, what?
Walking astride.
Yeah.
Look, I've been a police officer for 35 years, made hundreds of gun arrests, and I've never fired my weapon. So different people react to stresses in different fashions, and I can't explain what Jason Van Dyke did, and I don't want to.
So what was wrong with the DOJ investigation? It articulated what a lot of African Americans in Chicago believe about the police.
Steve Patton is the guy who we all know now was involved in the withholding of the videotape of Jason Van Dyke. He led the investigation in cooperation with the DOJ from the city. Second thing, like I said, they never interviewed me. Third thing is they criticized all the training in the department, but we were in compliance with the Illinois State Training Board's requirements. So if the problem is training, then it's the standard that's in the state, not the standard that CPD was using. All of these things come together in one big politically motivated endeavor. And it doesn't mean that the Chicago Police Department was absolutely perfect under my watch. I would never say that. But I do say that if an officer violated the law, he needs to be prosecuted, and if they violate a policy, they need to be disciplined or retrained. And I think some of the problems that came out of the McDonald case reflect some of those things that I'm talking about. Supervisors simply signing off on reports, not really reviewing them. And that's problematic. So there were problems there, and some of the things in the DOJ report absolutely are valuable. But the sweeping allegations, the methodology that they used, you don't draw your conclusions and then come to town and take testimonials and say, aha. And that's what they did.
Now, the mayor's going to try to link you to Trump. He has spent an entire year and a half going after Donald Trump. He's trying to make him a bigger boogeyman than he is. It's good politics to do that in Chicago. How do you combat that comparison and the attempts to link you to Trump?
The point is, I'm not going to do politics. I'm not going to do politics. And if that's what we're going to hinge everything on, all that is distraction from his failures here in Chicago.
I mean, how do you feel about Trump?
I think that Washington is in a world of hurt. I think that we're in a place where our government is completely ineffective. And I think that he's an incredibly polarizing figure, just like Rahm Emanuel. And I think that's a problem for any leader of city government or our federal government. I think it's a real problem.
So you see a parallel between those two?
Absolutely.
Now, you're going to have to prove that you have the gravitas to handle the city's finances. It's a huge problem. The mayor brags about dedicated funding sources for all four pension funds. Mm-hmm. And yet there's going to be a huge gap right after the election that's going to hit the new mayor in the face.
Sure.
What is your plan?
My plan, first of all, is to hire an expert to run the finances. I'm really good at the criminology stuff, and I know that. But I need experts who are going to help me with education and finance. But the bottom line, Fran, is this. All of the problems that we have are interrelated. Crime affects the schools, crime affects the economy. The economy affects the schools, the economy affects the crime, and the education system affects the other issues also.
That's all well and good, but you need money right now. Where do you get it?
We're going to come up with some different funding sources.
And what are they?
Well, like I told you yesterday, we're working on it. It hasn't been completely shaken out, but the bottom line is there's other funding sources that we can find, but we've got to stop the flight out of this city is the first thing we have to do.
I understand, but you owe it to the voters
Fran,
to
you're
tell
asking
them.
me questions, let me answer, please.
Okay, all right.
Nothing's really going to change in Chicago until we first make it safe.
You owe it to the voters to tell them what some of your ideas are. I mean, the mayor's put himself out.
I'm going to tell them what my ideas are as we move forward, and I develop them more.
The mayor has put himself on the line and raised property taxes by $1.2 billion. He's put in 2 telephone tax hikes.
How's that working?
He's put in a sewer and water fee.
How's that working?
And we still have a gap. What is your philosophy on funding sources instead of the property tax, instead of the telephone tax, instead of water and sewer, which also hits the property owner?
We have to make a healthy city. And if we make a healthy city, it's going to change everything that's happening here.
Decriminalizing marijuana likely will happen if we have a new governor named J.B. Pritzker. You've been opposed to that, and yet if you tax it, that's a new funding source.
I have been opposed to it, but I'm also the person who implemented issuing a ticket for marijuana possession rather than an arrest.
Legalizing marijuana and taxing it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it because nobody's done the research on this. Look at what's happened in places like Colorado as far as crime is concerned.
But you're open to it as a possible revenue source.
I'm open to virtually anything that we need to do to get this city on track. And I'm open to working with anybody who wants to help do that.
The consent decree is being negotiated with Lisa Madigan. She's going to do it before she leaves office. Should he do it? Do we need federal court oversight?
The bottom line is the more we put curbs on the superintendent's ability to run the department, the more difficult it is to have a healthy police department. So we have to do our research. We have to show people the good and the bad parts of consent decrees, which there are bad parts. They're very expensive. We've created a cottage industry for monitors, and what happens is, in some places, monitors are there for 10 years saying, well, we haven't gotten there yet because they're making a lot of money. We need longer term plans.
So would you resist a consent decree?
It depends on what it says.
Let's talk about some of the big ticket things that Rahm Emanuel has pushed that are diversions also. O'Hare Express, are you for that?
I kind of do like the idea, yeah.
Do you think there's a market for it?
Yeah, I do.
The Obama Library, $175 million in infrastructure money from the taxpayers?
Well, it depends on what we're going to get back from it.
I want to know what your poll said that leads you to believe you can beat Rahm Emanuel, and what is your path to victory?
Well, we're going to release some parts of that poll to the press at some point, but the path to victory really has to do with just staying true to the values that I have.
The Chicago Public Schools have had 5 or so CEOs under Rahm Emanuel. One of them is in the slammer right now, Barbara Byrd Bennett. Another one was forced out because of allegations of covering up an ethics investigation. Does Rahm Emanuel wear the jacket for that?
Absolutely. He's the guy in charge.
What does it say about him that he has one CEO in the slammer?
Poor choices.
And
we've seen it over and over again. He didn't fire me for 17 days until you filed a FOIA request. He wanted me to resign so he would not wear the jacket for the crime and the backlash that's happened since then.
You've been fuming ever since. Anybody would. So how do you overcome the notion that you are just getting even like Jane Byrne got even with Polandic?
I get my juices from public service, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really do something special in a great American city.
The $24 million that he raised last time, I'm sure he's going to go past 30. How are you going to compete with that?
I'm not going to try and compete with it. That's why, Fran, you're missing a big point here. We're talking about process. I think that the electoral system in this country should have something to do with policies, programs, successes, failures, and articulation of such.
You still need some money. You still need some.
But apparently, it's all about money.
No, I don't mean that, but you need some.
No, but this is what we're hearing, you know. If it's only about the money, then you know what? I'm barking up the wrong tree. Because I'm about doing something special. I'm about fixing the problems that we have. To me, it's all about values, and it's about what we need to do.
And I have to point out as we wrap up that there was a police commissioner in Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo, who did become mayor of Philadelphia. So
yeah.
It has happened.
I know it's happened before, but you know, look, Fran, I'm a manager. That's the way I look at it. You know, I happen to be managing in a police department, but I was at the top of city government in 3 major cities for almost 17 years. I've worked very closely with people like Cory Booker, who might be the President of the United States one day. And I learned a lot how to do city government and how to do it in a different fashion to make it much more effective than what we're seeing here in Chicago.
Well, best of luck.
Thank you.